Tina with You Made That, and today I have Lydia with me.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Tina, for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And this is Lydia's second time. She
Yeah.
was she was on like a year ago, and we talked about her room behind her.
Yes.
It looks
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't made much changes since last year, but I'm still loving it. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, well, I love the nice warm colors. It's
Yes.
it's a great vibe.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one so you can
Perfect.
catch her redecorating.
Yes.
But today we're talking about Lydia's new business, and it's Venlo Studios.
Yes. Yeah. In August of last year, I registered for my LLC and made it happen. So I'm so excited to be pursuing this and excited to chat with you today about branding.
Branding. I mean, that's kind of a new word for me. I got my degree in graphic design like years and years ago, but we didn't know what branding was until I didn't know for a couple of years. And then I was like, what does this mean? So, when I see that, okay, Lydia helps people with branding, it's like, okay, what exactly is that? So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, branding, it's interesting because I went to school for graphic design, same as you, Tina, but it's changed so much, like even in the last few decades, right? It's like, like 100 years ago, graphic design wasn't even a thing. And now that we have computers and there's businesses online and there's social media, I feel like this world of graphic design has gotten so much more intricate. So yeah, I guess I'll just start with branding as a whole. I see branding is like the process of creating an identity for a business, right? So like you have a business, you're selling a product or a service. What's the story behind that brand? What do they stand for? What is their mission? What is their logo or company name? All of these things correlate and come together to make this bigger story of an identity. And every business needs this, whether you think you do or not. Like the name of a company, as simple as that, like that determines what people's initial thoughts are about your brand, how easy it is to understand, how easy it is to remember. Is it confusing? All of these things you have to think about when you're creating a brand, and you want to consider your target audience
Mm.
because they're the ones who you're going to want to attract to your brand and buy your products or get your services. So those are some of the main things to think about. It also includes, your color palette, what colors you're going to use, because different colors can allude to different feelings and emotions. Like yellow is like bright and happy and fun, and blue is kind of more calm and peaceful and trusting. So there's different like ideas and feelings that come along with each color that you choose. It also ties into photography, like what style of imagery are you using? Like, how do you portray yourself? If you're the owner of the business, do you show yourself as like the front of the business, or are you kind of more behind the scenes, and are your employees or your products more the star of the show? So you have to think about what you're portraying your brand as, and then be consistent with that, because you want people to remember your brand and be able to instantly identify, oh, this is my favorite brand, they just popped up on my feed, and you instantly recognize it, and it makes you happy, you want to engage with it, you want to buy from them, all of those feelings. So those are some main things that come into branding. And I do have one example too that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But if you think about branding, right? Companies exist to sell products or service, like high level, right? But they're not actually just selling products and services. They're selling an experience. They're selling their story, the feeling. So the example I have is Nike, right? Everyone knows what Nike is, so it's a good one to talk about. But high level, they sell shoes and clothes, right? But what are they actually selling? They're selling a feeling of just do it, right? Their slogan, their tagline, that's part of their brand identity. So they're selling the confidence of when you buy these shoes, you're going to feel like you can do it. You're going to feel like you can train for that marathon, right? Like you're going to like be a new person, you're going to be empowered, you're going to be athletic. All of these feelings tie with that brand. So they're not just like a generic pair of shoes, they have a whole community and a whole aesthetic behind what they sell. And they're a lot more likely to sell their products because of that brand identity. And they're also, like going to be more successful. They're going to be able to mark up their products a little bit more. So their brand can now be more expensive than a generic brand that doesn't have as cool of a story. So that's just kind of an example of why branding is important and like what you can do with a brand.
Well, even like you said, you are the face of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So Venlo Studios, hey, you're the founder. So you've got the warm brown color behind, and
Yes.
you've got the smiling face, which is like, I want to work with Lydia. I want to be her friend.
Yeah.
I want her to do my logo, so
Yeah.
inviting, you're very approachable, and it's like, hi,
Yeah.
I can help you.
That's definitely important with a service-based business, especially if you're the one primarily doing the service. You're going to want to show your face, right? Like show what it looks like to work with you. What does it feel like to work with you? So I have some photos and videos of myself like working with clients, showing them like the backside of my camera, like here's what you look like. Isn't this great? Being able to show people like when I'm marketing on social media, like this is what I look like. This is what it will feel like to work with me. That's super important in sharing your story and your brand values too.
And I suppose we can go to your Venlo Studios website and your
Yes,
Instagram page and kind of see some of those behind the scenes.
absolutely. I have tons of portfolio pieces on my website. So my handle is venlostudio.com, but I have all my services broken out there. My primary areas of expertise is brand photography for solos, brand photography for teams, product photography, event photography, like for networking events or things in the business realm, and then graphic design services. So I kind of share a little bit about each of those different areas on my website and show examples, and testimonials too is a really big piece of that too, because when people come to my site who don't know me, I want to be able to show them like, hey, I've worked with all these cool people and this is what they've had to say about it. So that's another important piece.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, check that out. I'll put a link
Yeah,
to that in the
that would be
description below.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. Venlo Studios, what you do, brand and product photos that encapsulate the why behind your business.
Yes.
Is that a question that you ask new people, new clients? Is what is your why?
Yeah, I absolutely do because it is the foundation of how we build a brand photo shoot. So I usually, once a client books with me, then I send them out a questionnaire, and that questionnaire has tons of questions in there about like, describe your brand to me, who is your target audience, and what is your purpose, what is your why, like why did you start this business, what motivates you to keep going. I ask all these really in-depth questions to get my clients to really think about like, you know, I need to figure all these pieces out for myself before I can have someone jump in and help me with my brand. You have to know the direction you want to take it. So I send out that questionnaire, and then when the answers come back in, I kind of study them and put together a plan for how we can show your story. If you are an author and you just wrote your first book and you want to show the process of what it was like in your day to day of what inspired you to write this, maybe the book is about your kids and they are a big part of it. Showing these kind of behind the scenes like lifestyle imagery can really help portray the story of like how whatever you do came to be. And so I just love doing that. I love jumping behind my camera and just capturing people in a very authentic way that they can use to then help grow their business or show people like what they do best. What's neat is, I went to school for graphic design and I had a focus in photography, but then I also minored in marketing. So I kind of had all these different channels of interest. And what's really unique and interesting is where they all intersect is brand photography, which I think is so cool because a few years ago, like it dawned on me, like, this is what I'm good at. This is where all my strengths come together. It's brand photography. It's intentional, strategic photography that moves the needle forward and helps people promote their business. And how can you promote a business when you don't have like good imagery? Like a lot of people rely on stock photos or just like free photos online, but there's a disconnect, right? Like you go to someone's website and you hope to like learn and feel what it looks like to work with them. And if there's any sort of disconnect, you're going to hop off that page and move to the next person. So I like to kind of bring the photos as like a forefront. Like that's going to be the most important part of your visual brand identity, because photos can speak volumes to like what you're trying to portray, right? Like more so than words even sometimes. Like you can capture an emotion on someone's face of like what it feels like to work with them. And I just like get so lit up by that concept. And I just love to start with photos. And then oftentimes I'll use those photos and translate them into new brand assets for companies. So then I'll have photos for a new website, I'll have photos for graphics or new brochures or just like any sort of like marketing material that companies usually need. You need good photos to make those things look good.
So if you're creating, hey, this is the CEO of the company, hey, these are
Mhm.
the people, it's like, okay, I feel like I kind of know them a little bit. This is so
Yeah.
much more easier to identify with them.
Oh, absolutely. And even just going to like having their location where they, their office building, having that be the setting, because then people going onto the website is like, oh, this is what their front door looks like. Like, this is what their conference room looks like. This is what it would feel like to have a meeting with them. And it kind of eliminates a lot of the question.
Yeah, it sets companies apart from the
Yes,
ones who are just doing the stock photography.
absolutely.
How does somebody know that they need you to help them with their brand?
Yeah, so there's a lot that can go into this. There's like the photography piece and then there's the branding, like new logo design piece. And I can touch on either or both of those different categories, but I guess to start with branding as a whole, right? If you're like, let's say you've had a business for a few years and you're not really sure, like, is my logo working? Like, do I need a rebrand? Like, those are a lot of questions I get a lot of times is people that are already established, but they're not sure like whether to keep going with it or change it up a bit. And I'd say there's a few questions you can ask yourself in trying to determine whether to keep your branding or tweak it or update it a little bit. But some things to think about. Are you still resonating with your brand? Does it still get you excited? Are you aligned with what it is, where it's going, the story it's portraying? Has your business changed since it first started? Maybe your goal or your mission has shifted from when you first started, which is totally fine and expected, right? Like businesses change as they grow. And sometimes you can outgrow a brand, right? So like maybe your audience has shifted. Maybe you added a new product or service to your offering and now you need a new brand to kind of show what those changes are. Are you attracting your ideal client? That's a great question to ask and it's something to pay attention to. Like the people coming to your page, are they who you want to be talking to? Two more questions to ask yourself. Is your logo functioning well for you? From a practicality standpoint, maybe your logo is so intricate and hand drawn that when you make it small as your icon, that you lose the detail and you can no longer see what it is. And then the last question I would ask is how old is your brand? Do you have brand equity and loyalty out there? Do people recognize your logo right away? How many people know your brand? These are also like very good questions to consider and how to move forward. A lot of companies I work with that need rebrands, oftentimes will use the same types of colors or the color palette or a similar mark, but then just update it and tweak it a little bit so that it still feels and like there's the disconnect doesn't happen, right? It's like you still know that this is Nike, right? Or whatever the example is, but it's just like they're using a slightly different color now to update it. So there's a lot of things like that you can do to still stay relevant. It is helpful though to kind of do an evaluation of yourself and your brand and kind of think through those things because then you can kind of decide what the next steps are.
And that's when I first called Lydia because I wanted to get this channel up and running. And so I did the logo. I knew I wanted teal. I knew I wanted, BAM kind of letters. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had 5 videos to upload and I was anxious to get started. So I just was like, whatever. So I got started and 6 months later, it was like, that wasn't really the teal color I wanted, but I was in a hurry. I wanted to get things going. So I said, hey, Lydia, what's the best way to transition this now to bring in a warmer teal than the bright one that I had at first? And I'm not sure how to do my Instagram and, make that me plus you made that. So that was, valuable to me. Lydia asked me those questions. She sent me the questionnaire, and some of
Mhm.
the questions I had to think about. I was like, I don't know how to answer that. I hadn't thought about that before. And so even just, consultations, that's probably something you have on your website too. And something you offer is, how do I do this? Help, Lydia, help.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm more than happy to jump on a call with anyone to talk about branding, even if you just need some ideas or direction or if you have questions. I don't know everything in the world about branding, but I do love it and I love to like research it, dive into it and brainstorm ideas that could really help.
Yay. 10 out of 10. I highly recommend getting a hold
Thank
of Lydia.
you. I appreciate it, Tina.
Tell me about this slide that you sent me.
Yes. Yeah, this is just a little sample of my work. I kind of just put a few of my favorite photos together just to show. I've done some product photos, which is like the oats down in the bottom corner. That's a brand local to Minneapolis called Mini Oats. They're my favorite oatmeal and granola brand. So they sell online, look them up. But yeah, just a few other like personal brands and what it kind of looks like to build out your own lifestyle imagery as a business. We can go as casual or as professional as what your brand needs or is. So these are just shots that I love to create and stage to help you, build out your website to make it intentional and customized to exactly what you're selling. So just a few
Nice.
examples.
Yeah, I like those. Okay, so as a teaser, I've got this for everybody because I want to have Lydia come back and talk to us about. Ba-bam.
Yes. So this is a little passion project that my husband and I started 2 years ago. But we make wine in our house in Minnesota. And my in laws actually live down in Iowa on an acreage. And when they moved there, they acquired a whole bunch of fruits that are just in their yard. So they have apples and pears and apricots and peaches and grapes. And so when they moved there, we were kind of running out of ideas on what we could make with all of these awesome, fresh produce. And my husband came to me one day when we were down there and he was like, "What if we learn how to make wine?" And I was like, "I love that idea. Let's try it. Let's see what happens." So we brought home, a few pounds of grapes and just like researched, learned how to do it, taught ourselves, and now we're making like quite a bit of wine. So this is our, let's see, I think we've been doing this for 2.5 years now. So we just started like our fifth batch and we're now making 8 pound, or let's see, it's 8 gallons of grape wine is currently fermenting in our kitchen. And we have 4 gallons of peach wine. So there's about 75 bottles of wine just like fermenting in our kitchen right now. So it's something that we love to do. We're really excited about. I created the branding for it. It's called Ben John Vineyards, named after our last name, based on the family name, and drew the pictures on the labels to kind of show those are the trees or the vines that it came from. So to kind of give it that homegrown family touch is kind of where that branding was inspired from. We don't sell it yet, so there's no way to buy it. We need to get all the licensing and things figured out first. But it's something really fun for us to make and enjoy and give to friends. So yeah, just a little taste of our passion project.
Nice. Okay, I like that. And I don't know anything about it either, so I'll be excited to have you on again and you can tell us a little bit about what goes into all that and
Yeah,
show
absolutely.
show us a picture of your kitchen with all the stuff.
Yes, yeah. I've been documenting the process a lot because it's just so fascinating and people always ask us when they come over to our house like how did you make this? Like what is that process even like? So it's super fun to kind of share like how we do it. There's probably tons of ways to do it, but this is just a simple way that you can ferment any type of fruit in your kitchen. And like I said, we can't sell it yet, so no inquiries, please. But hopefully in the future that could be a really fun thing to do is to sell our wine. So look out for that in the future.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Lydia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I love talking about everything and all things branding and design. So happy to be here.
Well, you are good at it. You are talented, girl. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
all right. And I've got links to everything below, her Instagram, her website. Check it all out. And we'll talk to you later, Lydia.
Sounds
Thanks.
great. Bye,
Thanks for
everyone.
watching, everybody.